Axiom Verge isn't just a game, it's the fever dream of one man, Thomas Happ. Imagine, one day you wake up thinking, what if I made an entire game by myself? The music, coding, pixel art, everything. That's the journey Happ embarked on, and Axiom Verge is the offspring of what must have been many sleepless nights and an unhealthy amount of coffee. Released in 2015, the game immediately drew comparisons to Metroid, because, well, it kinda looks like Metroid if you squint and tilt your head to the side. But Happ didn't just copy-paste Metroid's homework. He took a few pages from the book, tore them up, and then rearranged them into something delightfully weird. This game isn't just about exploring an alien world, it's about exploring the mind of a mad scientist. And by mad scientist, I mean both the main character and Happ himself. Axiom Verge was a 5-year solo project, which, let's face it, it's either a sign of genius or a really bad work-life balance. Thomas Happ was once a developer at EA, and wasn't exactly the poster child for indie games. But after spending 2 years working on the Tiger Woods PGA Tour series, he clearly decided that making virtual golf courses wasn't fulfilling his existential needs. So he did what any reasonable person would do. He left the mainstream industry, locked himself in a metaphorical basement, and made a game about a scientist stuck in a dystopian alien dimension. The natural next step. Hey, John here. I just want to say thanks for taking the time to watch one of my videos. If you like what you've seen so far, maybe hit that like button, and if you want to see more like this, don't forget to subscribe. Anyways, back to the video. Okay, so let's talk plot. Or rather, let's talk about how Axiom Verge gives you a plot, then smacks you in the face with more questions than answers. You play as Trace, a scientist who, like all good fictional characters, can't help but touch things he shouldn't. After a lab accident, Trace wakes up in a strange alien world called Sudra. Already, you're thinking, classic, a scientist trapped on an alien planet. What could go wrong? Well, spoiler, everything. Trace meets a giant, unsettling machine called Elsa Nova that looks like the result of a bad Tinder date between an old CRT monitor and a squid. Elsa Nova tells Trace he needs to stop an evil entity called Athetos. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, like any good sci-fi story, Axiom Verge quickly descends into the realm of, wait, am I the bad guy? Territory. Trace begins to question everything around him, his memories, his purpose, and whether or not he should have packed more snacks for this whole ordeal. What makes the plot unique isn't the story itself. Scientists and aliens have been done to death, let's be honest, but the way the game drops crumbs of lore in such a disorienting fashion. And just when you think you understand what's going on, the game throws you a curveball, leaving you muttering, wait, what just happened? And by the end, you'll have more questions than answers, but it's part of its charm. Axiom Verge isn't trying to tell you a story, it's trying to confuse you just enough to keep you hooked. If you're a fan of tight platforming, bullet hell action, and a bit of head scratching, well, Axiom Verge delivers in spades. The game is familiar to anyone who's ever played a Metroidvania game, or even wandered around a maze aimlessly. You start with a basic blaster, but as you explore Sudra, you'll collect all sorts of new weapons and tools that'll have you asking, how many guns is too many guns? The true beauty of the gameplay, though, lies in the glitch mechanic. Happ didn't just lean into the retro pixelated aesthetic, he embraced the idea of glitches and bugs as actual gameplay elements. Early on, you'll unlock a tool called the Address Disruptor, which allows you to glitch the environment and enemies. It's like finding out you have a cheat code, but the game wants you to use it. Suddenly, you're blasting glitch beams at enemies, turning them into pixelated puddles, or even hacking platforms into existence. At first, it feels like the game is breaking, but then you realize it's all intentional. Axiom Verge plays with the concept of video game logic in a way that makes you feel like you're part of the Matrix. You start thinking, what if this was glitched in real life? Could I use my address disruptor on my student loans? Well, spoiler, you can't. I've tried. It's impossible to talk about Axiom Verge without mentioning the weapons. This game doesn't believe in subtlety when it comes to firepower. Trace's arsenal grows to almost absurd levels, with over 20 different weapons to play with. If you ever thought, my blaster could really use a mode where it shoots 5 directions at once, well, congratulations, Axiom Verge has got you covered. The weapon designs are as varied as they are bizarre. One minute, you're using your standard laser, and the next, you're firing off a gun that shoots little nanobots to chew through enemies. It's also worth mentioning that the game doesn't always explain what these weapons do. Axiom Verge loves to give you a new gun and tell you to figure it out and then let you loose in a room full of enemies. It's trial and error at its finest, which sometimes leads to those moments where you accidentally find the perfect solution to a problem, or accidentally blow yourself up, and either way, both outcomes are equally as satisfying. Sudra, the alien world you explore, is equal parts awe-inspiring and claustrophobic. The pixel art is beautifully done, and with each new area feeling distinct. Some parts of the world are industrial and mechanical, others are biological and gross, in that, is that breathing kind of way? The entire map is one big labyrinth, and if you don't enjoy backtracking through an endless maze of doors and corridors, you might find yourself quietly weeping in frustration. But hey, that's a Metroidvania for you. Half of the game is running through areas you've already been to, armed with a shiny new tool that opens up a previously locked section. The game rewards exploration, encouraging you to revisit old areas with new abilities that unlock hidden power-ups and secret lore. And by rewards, I mean it gives you just enough to make you feel clever for figuring it out, even if the solution was pretty obvious in hindsight. Navigating Sudra feels like the world itself is alive. There's a sense of dread around every corner, and sometimes the environment itself seems to be actively working against you. There are no clear signposts telling you where to go, no giant arrow saying, "The final boss is this way, dummy." You're left to figure it out on your own, and that's part of the magic. Sudra isn't just a backdrop, it's a character in the story, and one that wants to actively mess with your head. When Axiom Verge was released in 2015, it came out during a resurgence of Metroidvania-style games, but despite the crowded indie landscape, Axiom Verge stood out. Not just because of its retro visuals or its eerie sci-fi atmosphere, but because it felt like a love letter to the classics while also pushing the genre in weird new directions. Hap didn't just make another Metroid clone. He made a game that's about games, glitches, and the very nature of digital worlds. It also became an example of what one person can do with enough time, passion, and presumably an immunity to carpal tunnel syndrome. Hap didn't just develop Axiom Verge as an homage to his favorite games, but reinvented the idea of what a Metroidvania could be. The glitch mechanic alone feels like an innovation that redefines how players interact with the world around them. Metroidvania fans embraced it for its familiar gameplay, but indie game lovers latched onto it for its strange, unsettling atmosphere and unique mechanics. Today, it holds a place as one of the standout titles in the genre, a game that proves you don't need a massive studio or budget to make something special. You just need a vision, a lot of time, and the willingness to make a game that occasionally breaks your brain. No discussion of Axiom Verge is complete without diving into the soundtrack, because, honestly, it's the kind of music that makes you question if your ears are picking up on some secret, coded message from an alien race. Composed entirely by Hap himself, because of course he did the music too. The soundtrack is a blend of eerie synths, industrial beats, and unsettling drones that fit perfectly with the game's glitchy sci-fi vibe. The music doesn't just sit in the background, it becomes part of the atmosphere. You can feel the tension building as the low hum of a track subtly shifts into a mechanical crescendo. Some tracks make you feel like you're walking through a haunted factory, while others invoke the feeling of being lost in the vastness of space, isolated and alone. There's a consistent feeling that something is lurking just out of sight, waiting for you to let your guard down. Tracks like The Axiom or Trace Rising aren't just background noise, they're mood setters. They make you feel uneasy in the best way possible. And it's not just about the music fitting the world, it's about the music enhancing the experience. As the game delves deeper into its glitch-heavy themes, the soundtrack keeps pace, with distorted sounds and looping tracks that almost feel like the music itself is breaking apart, just like the world around you. The minimalist yet unsettling sound design complements the visuals perfectly. The bleeps and bloops, the ambient hum of alien technology, it all works to immerse you further into the twisted, glitchy world of Sudra. It's as if Tom Happ wasn't just crafting a soundtrack, he was building a puzzle that messes with your sense of reality, which, given the theme of the game, seems pretty on brand. In the end, Axiom Verge is a game that stands out not just for its retro aesthetic, or for its homage to Metroid, but because of the way it plays with the expectations of the player. It takes a genre that is well trodden and reinvents it, adding layers of complexity with its glitch mechanics, deep lore, and an atmosphere that feels both nostalgic and completely new at the same time. Happ's magnum opus might be a labor of love, but it's also a reminder that the indie game scene is capable of producing some of the most innovative experiences in the industry. Whether you're blasting enemies with a bizarre weapon, solving environmental puzzles with glitch powers, or simply trying to make sense of its cryptic story, Axiom Verge will stick with you long after the credits roll. So, if you haven't played it yet, well, what are you waiting for? Go lose yourself in the labyrinth that is Axiom Verge, and try not to question reality too much along the way. Just don't expect the game to give you any straightforward answers, because like any good glitch, it'll leave you scratching your head and wondering if you've been playing it wrong, or maybe the game has been playing you the whole time.